Subscribe to Storylab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Quiet Before. Wesley Dodson had learned to sleep light during his 3 tours in Afghanistan. 23 years after his discharge, the habit remained. So when his phone vibrated at 2:47 a.m. on a Thursday in March, he was awake before the second buzz. The screen showed Diane's photo, his daughter, 24, with her mother's eyes and his stubborn chin. His first thought was car trouble. His second was worse. "Dad." Her voice came in ragged gasps between sobs. "Dad, they killed him. They killed Tyler." Wesley sat up, feet already on the floor. His wife Marta stirred beside him. "Slow down, sweetheart." "Who killed who?" "The Reapers. The motorcycle gang. Tyler accidentally scratched one of their bikes at the gas station, and they— Oh God, Dad. They beat him right there in the parking lot. I watched them. They wouldn't stop. I screamed for help, and they just laughed." Her words dissolved into wailing. Wesley's pulse didn't quicken. It slowed. An old switch flipped in his mind, one he hadn't needed in decades. "Where are you now?" "Still at the hospital. The police are here, but they're saying it might be hard to prove who did what. There were 6 or 7 of them. The cameras were broken." "Dad, they're going to get away with it. Text me the address." "I'm coming." He ended the call and looked at Marta, who was already reaching for her clothes. "Is she hurt?" Marta asked. "No, but Tyler's dead." Marta's hand flew to her mouth. They'd met Tyler Bradford 6 months ago, an earnest kid studying mechanical engineering at the community college, working nights at an auto shop to pay his tuition. He'd been nervous meeting Wesley, which Wesley respected. The boy had asked permission to date Diane, old-fashioned but genuine. Now he was dead because of a scratch on someone's paint job. The emergency room was a fluorescent nightmare. Diane sat in a plastic chair, her roommate Kimberly Costello beside her, both girls streaked with tears and Tyler's blood. When Diane saw Wesley, she collapsed into his arms. "They were laughing, Dad," she whispered, even when the ambulance came. The big one with the beard, their leader, he said Tyler got what he deserved for disrespecting the club. Detective Sammy Holman approached, a weathered man in his 50s with sympathetic eyes. "Mr. Dodson, I'm sorry for your loss. I know Tyler wasn't family officially, but he was family," Wesley said flatly. "What happened?" Holman walked them through it. Tyler had been pumping gas when he'd accidentally bumped his car door into a custom Harley. Minor scratch, nothing that couldn't be buffed out. But the owner, Vincent Rasmussen, president of the Reapers Motorcycle Club, had exploded. Words became shoves. Shoves became punches. When Tyler went down, 6 more Reapers joined in. Security cameras? Vandalized 2 days ago. We're canvassing for witnesses, but Holman's expression said it all. Nobody testified against the Reapers. Not in this town. Tyler never hurt anyone, Diane said, her voice small. He was gentle. He rescued a kitten from under a car last week and spent 2 hours making sure it was okay. Wesley held her tighter. He remembered Tyler showing him that kitten, now named Wrench, asking if Wesley knew a good vet. A kid who cared about stray cats didn't deserve to die in a gas station parking lot. The Reapers have been a problem for 5 years, Holman admitted quietly. Since Vincent Rasmussen took over. Drugs, extortion, assault. We've made arrests, but witnesses recant. Juries acquit. They're smart about it. Smart. Wesley repeated, tasting the word. "I'll do everything I can," Holman promised. "But I want to be straight with you. This is going to be tough. These guys know how to work the system." Wesley nodded. He'd expected nothing less. At dawn, he drove Diane home to her apartment. Kimberly promised to stay with her. Wesley headed to his workshop, a converted garage behind his house where he did custom woodwork. But he didn't pick up any tools. Instead, he opened his laptop and typed Reapers Motorcycle Club into the search bar. The rabbit hole went deep. The Reapers had started as a legitimate riding club 20 years ago. But when Vincent Rasmussen became president 5 years ago, everything changed. Vincent had served 8 years for armed robbery, got out, and turned the Reapers into his personal empire. Now, they ran meth through the county, collected protection money from businesses, and threw their weight around like local warlords. Vincent's second-in-command was Kirk Doherty, a massive enforcer with a rap sheet including aggravated assault and attempted murder. The club had about 20 full members and twice that in prospects and hangers-on. And they just killed a kid over a scratch. Wesley found the Reapers' social media. Vincent's Facebook page was public, full of tough guy posturing. The most recent post, from 3 hours ago, made Wesley's jaw tighten. Mess with the Reapers, pay the price. Respect ain't asked for, it's taken. Hashtag Reapers forever, hashtag touch my bike die. The comments were full of laughing emojis and congratulations. Vincent had posted it like a trophy. Marta found Wesley in the workshop at noon. She set down a sandwich he wouldn't eat and sat across from him. What are you thinking? She asked. I'm thinking the police won't solve this. Maybe they will. Holman seemed genuine. Genuine doesn't convict motorcycle gangs, Marta. You know that. She did. Marta had been a public defender for 15 years before becoming a law professor. She'd seen how these things went. What's the alternative? Wesley met her eyes. After 30 years of marriage, she could read him like a book. You're not seriously considering. He was going to propose, Wesley said. Tyler. He came to me 2 weeks ago. Asked my blessing. Showed me the ring. Saved for 8 months to buy it. Had a whole plan for how he'd do it at the botanical gardens where they had their first date. His voice cracked. That kid was going to be our son-in-law. He was going to give us grandchildren. And now he's dead because some thug wanted to prove how tough he is. Wesley, I took an oath once to protect against enemies foreign and domestic. Those men are domestic enemies. Marta, they're terrorists in leather vests. You're not a Marine anymore. No, Wesley agreed. I'm not. He pulled up Vincent's post again, the mocking words glowing on the screen. I'm something worse. I'm a father who just watched his daughter's heart get ripped out. Marta was quiet for a long moment. If you do something, you could lose everything. Your business, your freedom, me, Diane. If I do nothing, I've already lost what matters most. The belief that justice exists. There has to be another way. Show me one. She couldn't. They both knew it. That afternoon, Wesley visited Tyler's parents at their small house across town. Tyler's mother, Jacqueline, could barely speak through her grief. His father, Luke Bradford, sat in stunned silence. The police say it might be months before trial, Luke finally said. If there even is a trial, we can't afford lawyers to push them. Tyler was everything to us, our only child, and these animals just... He broke down. Wesley stayed with them until evening, saying little, absorbing their pain. He'd been to too many funerals in the Marines, sat with too many grieving families. He knew there were no words that helped, but actions could. That night, Wesley sat in his truck outside Reaper's Den, the clubhouse where the gang operated. It was a converted warehouse on the edge of the industrial district, surrounded by chain-link fence topped with razor wire. Harleys lined the parking lot. Music and laughter spilled from the open bay doors. They were celebrating. Wesley counted 8 men visible outside, drinking and smoking. Vincent was easy to spot, 6'4", heavily bearded, wearing a president's patch on his vest. Kurt Doherty stood beside him, built like a freight train. Both men were laughing, reenacting something with exaggerated punches. They were reliving the murder. For entertainment. Wesley's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Not yet, he told himself. Not nearly yet. He needed intelligence. He needed a plan. And he needed to become someone he'd left behind in the Afghan desert. Chapter 2. Reconnaissance. Wesley's workshop had been his sanctuary for 20 years. Now it became his war room. The back corner, hidden behind a false wall he'd built to store expensive tools, held items from another life. His service footlocker. Inside, night vision goggles, tactical gear, combat knife, and other equipment he'd somehow never turned in. Also inside was a metal box with 3 disassembled firearms he'd acquired through private sales over the years, never registered. Insurance policies he'd hoped never to use. Today, he took inventory. Over the next week, Wesley maintained his normal routine while conducting surveillance. He still met clients, still worked on custom cabinets and furniture, still had dinner with Marta. But every free hour went to studying the Reapers. He learned their patterns. Vincent held court at Reaper's Den every evening from 8 until midnight. Kurt Doherty ran their protection racket, visiting businesses every Thursday to collect. A wiry man named Pete Pham handled their drug distribution. Dale Bell, the club's sergeant-at-arms, was their enforcer for internal discipline. Wesley also learned they were sloppy, confident to the point of arrogance. They'd operated with impunity for so long they barely bothered with security. That would be their undoing. On day 5, Detective Holman called. "Mr. Dodson, I wanted to update you personally. We've made arrests." Wesley's pulse quickened. Vincent Rasmussen, him, and 5 others, charged with second-degree murder. The DA is pushing hard. What's the evidence? Holman hesitated. "We have witness statements that place them at the scene. Tyler's injuries are consistent with multiple attackers. And we recovered some security footage from a business across the street. It's grainy, but it shows the assault. But their lawyer is already poking holes. The footage doesn't clearly show faces. Our witnesses are..." Another pause. One is a homeless man with credibility issues. Another is a teenager who's already being intimidated. Vincent's crew posted bail within hours. They're back at the clubhouse. So nothing's changed. The system takes time, Mr. Dodson. I know that's not what you want to hear, but thank you for the call, Detective. Wesley hung up and stared at his laptop. He'd been monitoring the Reaper's social media obsessively. Vincent had posted that morning. "Innocent until proven guilty, bitches. Can't stop the Reapers. Motorcycle, skull." The comments celebrated his release. Someone had started a GoFundMe for his legal defense. It had raised $40,000. Tyler's funeral was that Saturday. The church was packed. Classmates from college, co-workers from the auto shop, friend from his gaming group, family from 3 states. Diane gave a eulogy that destroyed everyone present, talking about Tyler's dreams of opening his own garage, of teaching underprivileged kids mechanic skills, of building a life with her. "He was kind," she said, her voice breaking. "In a world that rewards cruelty, Tyler chose kindness. And they killed him for it." At the cemetery, Wesley stood with Marta and Diane as they lowered Tyler into the ground. Luke and Jacqueline Bradford looked like they'd aged a decade in a week. The priest spoke about justice in the next life, but Wesley wasn't interested in the next life. He was focused on this one. That evening, Wesley drove to a storage unit he'd rented under a different name. Inside, he'd begun assembling supplies. Prepaid phones, a used motorcycle he'd bought for cash, changes of clothes, tools, and other necessities. He'd also been gathering intelligence on Vincent personally. The gang leader lived in a fortified house on 5 acres outside town. Security cameras, dogs, usually 2 or 3 Reapers staying there. Vincent had a wife, Claudia, and 2 kids in elementary school. That gave Wesley pause. He had no desire to leave children fatherless, even a monster's children. But then he remembered Diane's face at the funeral, remembered Tyler's parents, remembered Vincent's mocking social media posts. Some debts had to be paid. Marta confronted him on Sunday night. "You've been distant. More than grief. You're planning something." "I'm planning to make sure Diane can sleep at night." "By doing what? Killing him? You think that'll bring Tyler back? Think that'll help Diane?" "I think it'll stop him from doing it to someone else's kid," Wesley said. "How many other Tylers are out there, Marta? How many other families have these animals destroyed while the law does nothing?" "The law is doing something. There's a trial, which they'll walk away from. You know it. I know it. Holman knows it." He turned to face her. "I spent 3 tours watching bureaucrats make decisions that got good people killed. I'm done watching. This isn't Afghanistan. You can't just... Can't I?" His voice was quiet, dangerous. "I'm 57 years old. I built a good business, lived a good life. I'd trade all of it for one chance to look Vincent Rasmussen in the eyes and show him what real consequences feel like." "You trade your family? Trade Diane." That stopped him. "This is for Diane." "No, Wesley. This is for you. This is about your rage, your need for control. Diane needs her father, not a vigilante who's going to end up dead or in prison." They stared at each other across a gulf that had opened in their marriage. Finally, Marta spoke again, softer now. "I understand the anger. God knows I feel it too. But there has to be another way. Let me talk to some people at the DA's office. Let me see if we can apply pressure. How long will that take? I don't know. Months, maybe. And in those months, how many more people do the Reapers hurt?" Marta had no answer. She left him alone in the workshop, and Wesley returned to his planning. He spent Monday conducting close surveillance on Vincent. The gang leader's routine was predictable. Wake late, breakfast at a diner called Hank's Place, then to the clubhouse for business. Vincent carried a Glock .40 in a shoulder holster and usually had Kirk or Pete nearby. But he had moments of vulnerability. Every Tuesday night, Vincent went alone to visit his mother at a nursing home across town. Stayed exactly 1 hour. It was his only regular solo activity. Wesley considered it. Too clean, too easy, and it wouldn't send the right message. No, this needed to be public. The Reapers had killed Tyler in public, posted about it publicly, celebrated publicly. Their downfall needed to match. On Tuesday, Wesley drove past Reaper's den and saw something that made him slow. A young woman, maybe 19, was being escorted out by Kirk Doherty. She was crying, stumbling. Kirk threw her into the parking lot and laughed as she scrambled away. Wesley followed her at a distance. She made it 2 blocks before collapsing against a bus stop bench. He pulled over. "You need help?" She looked up with terrified eyes, then saw his face, middle-aged, concerned, unthreatening. "I just need to get home. I can give you a ride." "I'm not." He showed her his wedding ring, his phone with Marta's picture as the wallpaper. "I just want to help." After a long moment, she nodded. "Okay." Her name was Sarah Nelson. As Wesley drove, she talked. She'd gone to a party at Reaper's Den, thinking it was just a biker gathering. Instead, she'd been drugged and assaulted. When she tried to leave, Kirk had threatened her family. "They said if I go to the police, they'll kill my little brother," Sarah whispered. "They know where we live. They show me pictures of him at school." Wesley's hands tightened on the wheel. "How many girls have they done this to?" "I don't know. There were 2 others there tonight." She gave him an address in a rough part of town. "Thank you for the ride. And please, don't tell anyone what I told you." "Please." "I won't," Wesley promised. "But Sarah, you should still talk to the police. Detective Sammy Holman. He's one of the good ones." She shook her head. "They'll kill Danny. I know they will." Wesley watched her disappear into an apartment building, and something crystallized in his mind. This wasn't just about Tyler anymore. The Reapers were a cancer, and Wesley was going to cut it out. But he needed to be smart. Surgical. Going guns blazing would just get him killed and change nothing. He needed leverage. Information. Weakness. Over the next 2 days, Wesley followed Pete Pham. The drug dealer was less careful than Vincent or Kirk, often making rounds alone. On Thursday evening, Wesley followed Pete to an abandoned warehouse where he picked up a shipment of methamphetamine from suppliers. Wesley photographed everything from a distance with a telephoto lens. Then he followed Pete to a series of dead drops around town where he distributed to street dealers. More photographs. More evidence. But evidence meant nothing if it wouldn't be used. The police hadn't stopped the Reapers. The courts hadn't stopped them. That left one option. Wesley would have to become judge, jury, and executioner. The question was how. Chapter 3, The Art of War. Wesley's father had given him a book when he enlisted. The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Wesley had carried it through 3 deployments, its pages dog-eared and annotated. One passage had always stuck with him. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. He would win first. Friday morning, Wesley had breakfast with an old Marine buddy named Bruce Hinton, who now ran a private security company. They talked about business, family, the usual. Then Wesley steered the conversation. "You still do background checks for clients?" "All the time." "Why?" "I need information on someone." "Off the books." Bruce studied him. They'd served together in Helmand Province, saved each other's lives more than once. "This about your daughter's boyfriend?" News traveled fast in the veteran community. "Yeah, the Reapers are bad news, Wes. I've done security for businesses they extort. These guys don't play. Neither do I." Bruce was quiet for a moment. "What do you need?" "Everything. Financial records, criminal history, associates, vulnerabilities. Anything that shows who they really are. That's not exactly legal for me to." "Bruce, please." His friend nodded slowly. "Give me a week. And Wes, be careful. Whatever you're planning, be smart about it." Wesley spent the weekend with Diane. They went through Tyler's belongings, his clothes, his tools, his video games. Each item was a small heartbreak. Diane found the engagement ring in Tyler's sock drawer and dissolved into tears. He was so nervous about proposing, she said. He kept asking if I liked this ring or if he should get something different. I would have said yes to a ring from a bubblegum machine. I just wanted him. Wesley held her, this grown woman who'd always be his little girl. We're going to get through this. How? How we get through knowing they're out there, laughing about it? We find a way to make sure they stop laughing. Something in his tone made her look up. Dad, you're not thinking of. I'm thinking about keeping you safe. That's all. But Diane was too smart. Don't do anything stupid. Tyler wouldn't want you to ruin your life over this. Tyler's not here to want anything anymore. That's the problem. Monday, Bruce called. I've got your information. You want to meet? They met at a truck stop diner off the highway. Bruce handed over a thick envelope. This is everything I could dig up. Financial stuff was tricky. Had to call in some favors with a guy who does forensic accounting. But what I found, he shook his head. These guys are worse than you think. Wesley opened the envelope. Inside were detailed dossiers on each Reaper member. Vincent's file was inches thick. Vincent Rasmussen had been arrested 12 times, convicted 3 times. His prison record showed violent incidents, gang affiliations, and radicalization. After his release, he'd systematically taken over the Reapers through intimidation and violence. The previous president had retired after a mysterious motorcycle accident that left him paralyzed. But more interesting were the financial records. Vincent had money, lots of it. Properties, vehicles, investments, all purchased with cash. The club grossed an estimated $2 million annually through drugs, extortion, and illegal gambling. Kurt Doherty's file was equally damning. 3 assault charges, 1 attempted murder, plea bargain down to aggravated assault. He'd beaten a man into a coma over a bar dispute. The victim had permanent brain damage. Pete Pham ran the drug network with ruthless efficiency. He'd been linked to 2 overdose deaths, but never charged. Dale Bell, the sergeant-at-arms, enforced discipline within the club. Rumor was he'd killed at least 1 Reaper who tried to leave. There's more, Bruce said. The financial guy found something interesting. Vincent's been skimming from the club's profits, hiding money in offshore accounts. If the other Reapers knew, they'd probably kill him themselves. Wesley looked up. How much? North of $300,000 over 2 years. He's preparing an exit strategy. Probably figures he'll do a few more years of this, then disappear with his family to somewhere without extradition. An idea began forming. Could this information be given to the other Reapers anonymously? Sure, but it'd just cause internal conflict. They'd still be out there. What if the conflict was severe enough? What if Vincent wasn't around to defend himself? Bruce leaned back. Wes, what are you planning? Justice. That's not an answer. Wesley met his eyes. It's the only answer I've got. These men killed a kid in cold blood and bragged about it. The police can't stop them. The courts won't convict them. Someone has to. And that someone is you? I'm the only one willing. Bruce was quiet, wrestling with something. Finally, I can't be part of murder, Wes. I've got a family, a business, a life. I'm not asking you to be. I just needed information. And now you have it. What I do is pretend we never had this conversation. Bruce stood. But I will say this. If someone were to expose the Reaper's criminal enterprise, really expose it with evidence that couldn't be ignored, that would create chaos. Chaos makes people vulnerable. Vulnerable people make mistakes. Wesley nodded. Message received. That night, Wesley began assembling evidence packages. He had Bruce's financial documents, his own surveillance photos, recorded conversations he'd captured with a parabolic microphone. Everything. He created multiple copies, encrypted digital files, and physical backups. Then he drafted an anonymous tip to Detective Holman, complete with evidence of drug trafficking, money laundering, and racketeering. He didn't send it yet. Timing would be crucial. He also created a separate package for the IRS, documenting Vincent's unreported income and tax evasion. That would take months to process, but it would add pressure. Finally, he created the most dangerous package. Information about Vincent's embezzlement, formatted to look like it came from Pete Pham, Vincent's rival within the club. He'd send this to Kurt Doherty at the right moment, fracturing their alliance. Sun Tzu said, "All warfare is based on deception." Wesley would make them destroy each other. But first, he needed to thin the herd. Wednesday night, Wesley followed Dale Bell to a bar on the outskirts of town. The sergeant-at-arms was alone, celebrating his birthday with a bottle of whiskey and a pool table. He was drunk by 10, stumbling by 11. Wesley watched from his truck as Dale finally stumbled out at midnight, heading for his motorcycle. Dale mounted the bike, fumbled with his keys, started the engine, and drove straight into traffic, swerving wildly. Wesley followed at a distance. Dale made it 3 miles before he missed a turn and skidded into a ditch. The motorcycle tumbled, throwing Dale into a fence post. Wesley drove past, slowing just enough to see Dale struggling to stand, clearly injured but alive. He considered stopping, finishing it. But no, Dale's drunk driving would catch up to him eventually. And a Reaper in the hospital meant one less guard at the clubhouse. Small victories. Thursday, Wesley made a decision he'd been avoiding. He sat Marta down and told her everything. The surveillance, Bruce's information, his plans. "I need you to know," he said, "because if this goes wrong, you need to be able to honestly say you try to stop me. I need you protected. Wesley, this is insane. I know. You could die. You probably will die. I know. And you're doing it anyway. I have to. Not just for Tyler. For every person they'll hurt tomorrow, next week, next year. Someone has to stop them." Marta's eyes filled with tears. "I can't lose you two. You won't." He took her hands. "I've been in worse situations. I know what I'm doing." "Do you?" "Because this sounds like suicide with extra steps. It's calculated risk. I'll have advantages they don't expect. Surprise, training, motivation. And I have something they don't." "What?" "Nothing left to lose that matters more than this." They sat in silence. Finally, Marta spoke. "If you're going to do this, and I can't believe I'm saying this, then do it smart. Use your head, not just your anger. Come home to your daughter. That's the plan. And Wesley, make them pay." He kissed her, long and deep, knowing it might be the last time. Then he went to his workshop and began final preparations. The next morning, Friday, Wesley sent the anonymous tip to Detective Holman from an encrypted email account. The subject line, "Reaper Drug Network, Complete Evidence." He included everything. Photos of Pete Pham picking up drugs, distributing to dealers, collecting money. GPS coordinates of stash houses. Financial records showing money laundering. Witness statements he'd collected from people too scared to testify publicly but willing to talk anonymously. Holman would have to act. Even if he didn't want to, the evidence was too comprehensive to ignore. It would force a response. And when the police came for the Reapers, they'd be distracted, divided, vulnerable. That's when Wesley would strike. He spent Friday afternoon at the range, practicing. His skills had dulled over the years, but muscle memory returned quickly. By sunset, he was grouping shots within an inch at 50 yards. Good enough. Saturday morning, Diane came to the workshop. "Mom told me you're doing something dangerous. Mom worries. Dad, please. Don't. I can't lose you two." Wesley set down the knife he was sharpening. "Sweetheart, I need to ask you something. If you could make them pay for what they did to Tyler, would you?" "Yes," she said immediately, "but not if it meant losing you. What if I told you there are more Tylers out there? More victims? And that every day we wait is another day they hurt someone?" Diane's jaw tightened. "Then I'd say someone should stop them. That's what I'm doing." "By yourself? Against an entire gang?" "I won't be by myself. I'll have surprise, planning, and 23 years of combat experience." He pulled her close. "Trust me. I got this." She pulled back, searching his face. "Promise me you'll come back." "I promise I'll do everything I can." It wasn't the promise she wanted, but it was the only honest one he could give. That night, Wesley loaded his truck with everything he'd need. Weapons, ammunition, tactical gear, supplies. He dressed in dark clothes, face paint, gloves. He became a ghost. The war was about to begin, and the Reapers had no idea what was coming for them. Chapter 4. First Blood. Detective Sammy Holman stared at his computer screen in disbelief. The anonymous email had arrived at 6 a.m. Saturday, and he'd been poring over it for 3 hours. The evidence was overwhelming. Dozens of photographs, audio recordings, financial documents, witness statements. Everything he'd need to dismantle the Reaper's operation. The sender had even included a metadata scrub report showing the information was authentic, not fabricated. Someone had done professional-level intelligence work. Holman called his captain. We need to move on the Reapers. Today, based on anonymous intel, based on actionable intelligence from a credible source. I've verified half of it already. This is our chance. By noon, warrants are being drafted. By 4 p.m., task force officers were assembling. They'd hit the Reapers at dawn Sunday. The clubhouse, Vincent's house, key members' residences. But they were 12 hours too late. Wesley struck first. Saturday at 11 p.m., Pete Pham left the clubhouse alone, heading to collect money from dealers. Wesley had been watching for 3 hours, waiting for this exact scenario. He followed Pete's van to a convenience store in a rough neighborhood. Pete went inside. Wesley pulled up beside the van and attached a small GPS tracker underneath. Then he waited. Pete emerged 15 minutes later with a bag of cash. He drove to 2 more locations, collecting more money. The van probably held $50,000 by the time Pete headed toward his apartment. Wesley had studied Pete's route for a week. He knew the perfect spot, a deserted stretch of industrial road. No cameras, no witnesses. Wesley accelerated past Pete's van, then hit the brakes hard, forcing Pete to swerve. The van skidded to a stop. Pete jumped out, furious. What the hell, man? You trying to... He stopped when he saw Wesley's face in the streetlight. You, Pete said, recognition dawning. You're that girl's father. Tyler's. Wesley shot him in the knee. The suppressed 9mm made less noise than a firecracker. Pete went down screaming. Tyler Bradford, Wesley said, walking closer. Say his name. Fuck you. Wesley shot the other knee. Pete's screams intensified. His name. Tyler. Tyler Bradford. Jesus Christ, please. Why did you kill him? I didn't. That was Vincent and Kirk. I wasn't even there. But you celebrated. You laughed. You're part of the gang that murdered a kid over a scratch. Pete was sobbing now, bleeding heavily. Please, man. I've got a family. So did Tyler. Wesley pulled out his phone and showed Pete a photo. Tyler and Diane at Christmas, happy and in love. He was going to propose, going to marry my daughter, going to give me grandchildren. And your brothers beat him to death while you cheered. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. Wesley believed him. Terror did that. Made people honest. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me everything about the Reapers. Where they keep their money, their drugs, their records. Every secret, every crime. You're going to talk until I'm satisfied. And then you'll let me go. Then I'll call an ambulance. Maybe you'll make it. Maybe you won't. But you'll have a better chance than Tyler got. Pete talked. He told Wesley everything. Stash houses, corrupt cops on the payroll, which businesses they extorted, where Vincent kept his personal safe. Names, dates, locations. Wesley recorded it all. When Pete finally stopped, exhausted and pale from blood loss, Wesley made the call to 911 from a payphone 3 blocks away. Man shot at the corner of Industrial and 5th. Needs immediate help. Then he disappeared into the night. Pete survived. By the time the ambulance arrived, he'd lost enough blood to need transfusions, but lived. The police found the bag of cash in his van, along with drugs and a gun. When they questioned him, Pete claimed he'd been robbed by 2 masked men. He didn't mention Wesley. Couldn't, really, without admitting to the drug trafficking. But word spread fast. By Sunday morning, the Reapers knew someone had taken out Pete Pham. Vincent called an emergency meeting at the clubhouse. Wesley watched through binoculars from a building across the street. 16 Reapers showed up, looking nervous. Vincent was there, along with Kirk Doherty and several others. Dale Bell was notably absent, still in the hospital from his motorcycle accident. Through Wesley's parabolic microphone, he heard Vincent address the group. Some motherfucker is trying to intimidate us, Vincent snarled. Shot Pete, left him bleeding. This is disrespect we can't ignore. We find who did this. We make an example. Could be a rival gang, Kirk suggested. The devils have been pushing into our territory. Or it's that girl's family, another Reaper said. The one we dealt with at the gas station. I heard her dad's some kind of ex-military badass. Vincent laughed. One old man? Against all of us? He'd have to be suicidal. Wesley smiled grimly. They still thought of him as one man. They didn't understand that one man with training, motivation, and planning was more dangerous than a dozen thugs with guns. While the Reapers were distracted, Wesley moved to Phase 2. Using the information Pete had provided, he drove to a storage unit where the Reapers kept their drug supply. The lock was commercial grade, but Wesley had bolt cutters. Inside, he found exactly what Pete had described: 200 pounds of methamphetamine, street value around $2 million. Wesley didn't destroy it. Instead, he called Detective Holman from another payphone. Check storage unit 347 at Secure Store on Highway 9. You'll find enough drugs to put the Reapers away for life. He didn't wait for a response. By the time the police arrived with a warrant, Wesley was hitting the second stash house. This one held cash, about $400,000 in a floor safe. Wesley cracked it using techniques he'd learned from a demolitions expert in the Marines. He took the money. Not for himself, that wasn't the point. But removing their capital would cripple their operations. He'd already decided to donate it anonymously to a fund for Tyler's parents and other victims of gang violence. The third target was riskier: Vincent's house. But with Vincent at the clubhouse and police activity increasing, it was the perfect time. Wesley bypassed the security system using a commercial jammer. The dogs were drugged with meat he'd tossed over the fence earlier. Claudia, Vincent's wife, was out shopping with the kids. The house was empty. Wesley went straight to Vincent's office. In a closet behind a false wall, he found the personal safe Pete had mentioned. This took longer to crack, 20 minutes of careful work. But inside was treasure: ledgers documenting payoffs to corrupt officials, records of murders and assaults, Vincent's private stash of jewelry and cash, and most importantly, evidence of his embezzlement from the club. Wesley photographed everything. Then he took the embezzlement evidence, would need it for his final play. He left the house as silently as he'd entered. By the time Vincent returned home that evening, he'd never know anyone had been there. Sunday evening, the news reported a major drug bust. Police had seized significant quantities of methamphetamine and arrested 3 low-level Reaper associates who'd been guarding the stash. The investigation was ongoing. The Reapers were rattled. Pete was in the hospital under police guard. Their drug supply was gone. Someone was hitting them systematically. And Vincent had no idea it was just beginning. Monday morning, Wesley sent another package, this one to Kirk Doherty. Inside was documentation of Vincent's embezzlement, formatted to look like it had been compiled by Pete Pham before his shooting. The implication was clear. Pete had discovered Vincent's theft and was planning to expose him. So Vincent had Pete shot. The package included a note in blocky handwriting: "Vincent's betraying all of us. He's stolen $300,000 and planning to run." Pete found out. Now Pete's in the hospital. Are you next? A friend. Wesley dropped it in a mailbox and waited. Kirk received the package Tuesday morning. He studied the documents: bank statements, wire transfers, offshore accounts. All real, all damning. He took them to 2 other senior Reapers, Oscar Lee and Hugo Little. "Vincent's been stealing from us," Kirk said, "for years. How do we know this is real?" Oscar asked. "I'll check the accounts," Hugo said. He was the club's unofficial accountant. "Give me a day." Wednesday, Hugo confirmed it. The money was gone, hidden in accounts under Vincent's name. The embezzlement was real. Kirk called a secret meeting, just the senior members, excluding Vincent. "We have a problem." That night, the Reapers' unity began to fracture. Wesley watched it all through electronic surveillance and informants. His plan was working. The Reapers were turning on each other, distracted, vulnerable. But he wasn't done, not even close. Thursday, he struck again. This time, targeting Hugo Little, the accountant who'd confirmed Vincent's theft. Hugo lived alone in a townhouse, paranoid and well-armed. But paranoia meant predictable routines. Every morning, Hugo left at exactly 7 a.m. to get coffee from the same shop. Same route, same timing. Wesley didn't kill him. Instead, as Hugo walked to his car, Wesley approached openly. "Hugo Little?" Hugo spun, hand going his waistband. But he froze when he saw Wesley's face. Calm, unthreatening, except for the suppressed pistol held casually at his side. "Who the fuck?" I'm Tyler Bradford's father-in-law. You helped the club that murdered him. Now I need your help. I don't help cops. I'm not a cop. I'm something worse." Wesley's smile was cold. "I'm a father with nothing left to lose and very particular skills. You've got two choices. First choice, you tell me everything you know about Vincent's operations, his plans, his weaknesses. Second choice, I shoot you and find someone else to ask." Hugo's face went pale. "You're bluffing." Wesley shot the car window behind Hugo. Glass exploded. "Choice. Okay. Jesus Christ." Hugo talked. He explained Vincent's long-term plan, build up capital, then disappear to Mexico with his family, leaving the club to implode. He detailed the corrupt officials on Vincent's payroll, including a judge and 2 cops. He revealed that Vincent kept blackmail material on all club members to ensure loyalty. Most importantly, Hugo revealed that Vincent was planning to kill Kirk and the other senior members before he ran. He'd already hired an outside crew to do the hit, bikers from Texas, arriving next week. "You tell anyone about this conversation," Wesley said, "and I'll come back. Understand?" Hugo nodded frantically. Wesley left him standing in the parking lot, terrified and compliant. He wouldn't warn Vincent, too scared. But the information was gold. Friday, Wesley made his boldest move yet. He intercepted the Texas bikers before they could reach Vincent. They were traveling in a van for men with significant criminal records. Wesley didn't confront them directly. Instead, he called the highway patrol from payphone. "Black van, license plate XKR 7734, heading north on I-40. Drivers are armed fugitives wanted in Texas for murder. Extremely dangerous." The bikers were pulled over 20 miles later. When they resisted arrest, a shootout ensued. 2 bikers dead, 2 arrested. The news reported it as a major police operation against interstate criminal networks. Vincent's backup plan was gone. Saturday morning, exactly 1 week after Wesley's campaign began, the Reapers were in chaos. Pete Pham was hospitalized and facing charges. Their drugs were seized. Their money was missing. Hugo was acting paranoid and jumpy. Dale Bell was still recovering from his accident. The Texas crew was dead or arrested. And Kirk Doherty was convinced Vincent was a traitor planning to murder them all. The final domino was ready to fall. Wesley made one last call from payphone. This one to Detective Holman. "The Reapers are planning to kill Kirk Doherty tonight at the clubhouse. 8 p.m. Vincent Rasmussen is bringing in outside help. If you raid the clubhouse, then you'll catch them in the act." "Who is this?" Wesley hung up. Then he prepared for the endgame. Chapter 5, Fracture. Kirk Doherty was many things: brutal enforcer, loyal soldier, violent criminal. But he wasn't stupid. The evidence of Vincent's betrayal was overwhelming. And now, with Hugo acting strange and Pete in the hospital, Kirk knew something was badly wrong. Saturday evening, he arrived at Reaper's Den with 4 loyalists: Oscar Lee, Maurice McKenzie, Art Vaughn, and Clifton Lewis. They were armed and ready for trouble. Vincent was already there with his own faction: Brandon Snow, Leroy Doty, and Sammy Holman. Wait, not Holman. Wesley had been monitoring the Reapers so closely he'd mixed up names. Vincent's group included Brandon Snow, Leroy Doty, and Stephen Molina. The tension in the clubhouse was thick enough to cut. "We need to talk," Kirk said, his hand resting on his pistol. "About?" Vincent was drinking whiskey, affecting calm, but his eyes were calculating. "About $300,000 you stole from the club." The room went silent. Vincent's face darkened. "Who told you that? Does it matter? I've seen the proof. Offshore accounts, wire transfers. You've been bleeding us dry. That's a lie spread by someone trying to divide us." Vincent stood. "You really going to believe some random documents over me? You're president." "I verified them," Oscar said. "The money's gone, Vincent. You took it." Vincent's hand moved toward his weapon. Kirk's crew did the same. For a moment, it seemed like the clubhouse would erupt into a bloodbath. Then the front door crashed open. "Police! Everyone on the ground now!" Detective Holman burst in with a tactical team, weapons drawn. The Reapers froze, caught between their internal conflict and the sudden raid. "Down! Now!" The Reapers had 2 choices: fight the police or comply. Most chose compliance, hitting the floor with hands visible. But Vincent bolted for the back exit, along with Brandon and Leroy. Wesley had anticipated this. He was positioned in the alley behind Reaper's den, dressed in black, face painted, night vision goggles giving him a clear view. When Vincent and his men burst through the back door, Wesley was ready. Vincent Rasmussen, the gang leader, spun, gun coming up. Wesley shot it out of his hand. Vincent screamed, clutching his shattered fingers. Brandon and Leroy reached for their weapons, but Wesley was faster. 2 shots, both kneecaps. They went down howling. Wesley approached Vincent, who was backed against the wall, cradling his mangled hand. "Remember me?" Vincent's eyes widened. You're the old man. Tyler Bradford. Say his name." "Tyler Bradford," Vincent gasped. "Look, man, that was just business." Kid disrespected. Wesley hit him, a sharp jab that broke Vincent's nose. "That was my future son-in-law. That was a kid with dreams, with people who loved him. And you beat him to death for scratching paint. It wasn't personal. It's personal now." Wesley could hear police shouting inside. Would have seconds before they came through the back. "You're going to confess. To Tyler's murder, to everything. You're going to make sure every Reaper involved goes to prison. Or what? You'll kill me?" Vincent laughed through bloody teeth. "You can't. You're a good guy, playing vigilante. But you don't have what it takes to." Wesley put the gun to Vincent's knee and pulled the trigger. Vincent's scream was primal. Wesley leaned close. "I have 23 confirmed kills from my time in the Marines. You think I'm a good guy? I'm whatever I need to be to get justice. Now, you're going to confess, or I'm going to systematically destroy every piece of your life. Your wife, your kids, your money, everything you care about. I'll tear it all down. Not by hurting them, by making sure they know exactly what kind of monster you are. The fuck does that? I have videos, Vincent, of what you and your boys do at the clubhouse. The girls you drug, the deals you make. I have recordings of you laughing about killing Tyler. I will send all of it to your wife, your mother, your children's school. I will make sure everyone knows." Vincent's face went pale. "You're bluffing." Wesley pulled out his phone and played an audio clip. Vincent's voice, clear as day. That punk bled out like a stuck pig. Should have heard him crying for his mommy. Laughter from multiple Reapers in the background. "I have hours of this," Wesley said. "And not just audio. Video too. You want your kids to see what daddy really does." Vincent crumbled. "What do you want?" "Full confession. Names, dates, crimes. Everything. You cooperate completely with the DA. And you make sure Kirk and the others understand that fighting the charges will only make things worse. They'll kill me in prison. That's a risk you'll have to take." Wesley heard footsteps approaching the back door. "Time to go. You have 24 hours to make your decision. After that, I release everything to your family. Understand?" Vincent nodded, broken. Wesley disappeared into the shadows seconds before police burst into the alley. They found Vincent and his men wounded, but alive, babbling about a masked attacker. Holman coordinated the arrests while medics treated the wounded. Inside the clubhouse, they found Kirk and his faction under guard, along with evidence of weapons, drugs, and financial records Wesley had planted there earlier. The Reaper's empire was collapsing, but Wesley still had work to do. Sunday morning, the news was dominated by the Reaper raid. 12 arrests, weapons seized, drug trafficking charges pending. The DA was calling it the biggest organized crime bust in the county's history. Wesley watched it all from his workshop, monitoring police scanners and news feeds. Vincent was at the hospital under guard. Kirk was in custody. Most of the senior Reapers were locked up. But Tyler's actual killers, the 6 who'd beaten him, were still out there. The police had them on camera now, but making charges stick would require Vincent's testimony. And despite Wesley's threats, Vincent was a psychopath who might choose violence over cooperation. Wesley needed insurance. He drove to the hospital where Vincent was being treated. Security was tight, but Wesley had learned the guard rotations. During a shift change, he slipped into Vincent's room wearing stolen scrubs and a surgical mask. Vincent was handcuffed to the bed, his hand bandaged, knee immobilized. He looked up when Wesley entered, and fear flashed across his face. "You," he whispered. Wesley pulled up a chair. "How's the hand?" "Fuck you. I need your decision. Are you confessing? Or am I ruining your family? Vincent glared at him with pure hatred. You think you've won? You're just one man. The Reapers will rebuild. We always do. And when we find you, you won't. Wesley leaned closer. Because I've already won, Vincent. Your club is in pieces. Your money is gone. Your reputation is destroyed. And here's something you don't know. Kirk thinks you were planning to have him killed. He's already talking to the DA about a deal. He's going to testify against you in exchange for reduced charges. That was a lie, but Vincent didn't know that. Kirk wouldn't. He already has. Oscar and Maurice, too. They've all turned on you. So your choices are simple. Cooperate and maybe survive prison. Or stay quiet and spend the rest of your life watching your back while your family learns what a monster you really are. Wesley stood. I'll check back tomorrow for your answer. But while you're thinking, remember Tyler Bradford. Remember how he begged for mercy while your boys kicked him to death. Remember how you posted about it online like it was something to be proud of. Because karma's a bitch, Vincent, and I'm her delivery service. He left before Vincent could respond. Monday morning, Vincent's lawyer contacted the DA. Vincent was ready to make a deal. Over the next week, the dominoes fell. Vincent gave a full confession, implicating everyone involved in Tyler's murder. Kirk, facing his own charges, also cooperated. Hugo Little rolled over in exchange for immunity. The police used their testimonies to arrest the remaining Reapers. By the following Monday, 23 Reapers were in custody, facing charges ranging from drug trafficking to murder. The DA held a press conference announcing that justice would finally be served for Tyler Bradford and numerous other victims. Diane watched the press conference with Wesley and Marta. When they showed Tyler's photo and talked about the arrests, Diane started crying. Is it really over? She asked. Not yet, Wesley said. But soon. The trial would take months, but the outcome was certain. With multiple confessions and mountains of evidence, the Reapers were finished. Detective Holman visited Wesley 2 weeks after the raid. They sat in Wesley's workshop, both knowing what the conversation would be about. The masked man who shot Vincent and his crew, Holman said, we got descriptions. Military tactics, professional-level combat skills. Knew exactly how to avoid cameras. Sounds like someone who knew what they were doing. Sounds like someone with a motive. Holman sipped the coffee Marta had brought. I can't prove anything, of course. The evidence trail for all the anonymous tips, the surveillance photos, the informant calls, it's all clean. Almost too clean. Almost, Wesley agreed. Here's the thing, though. Vincent and his boys killed a kid in cold blood. They terrorized this community for years. And now they're all facing justice. Sometimes, Holman paused. Sometimes the law needs a little help. From people who understand what it means to protect and serve. You're a good detective, Holman. And you're a good man, Mr. Dodson. Tyler was lucky to almost be part of your family. He stood. I hope you can find peace now. I hope so too. Holman left, and Wesley knew the investigation into the masked vigilante would go nowhere. Not because Holman couldn't solve it, but because he'd chosen not to. Some justice happened in courtrooms. Some happened in the shadows. Tyler's memorial service was held on a Sunday afternoon. Hundreds attended. Friends, family, classmates, people whose lives Tyler had touched in his short time on Earth. Diane spoke again, this time with less pain and more gratitude for the time they'd had together. Tyler believed in justice, she said. He believed people should be held accountable for their actions. He believed in standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. I like to think he'd be proud of how this ended. Not with more violence, but with the truth coming out and justice being served. Wesley caught Marta's eye. She knew the truth, that justice had required violence, that the legal system had needed an illegal push. But she also knew that sometimes the world wasn't black and white. Sometimes it was dark gray, and you did what you had to do. Later, at the reception, Luke and Jacqueline Bradford approached Wesley. They told us you were the one who provided a lot of the evidence to the police, Luke said. Thank you. I just wanted to help. You did more than that. You got us justice. Jacqueline hugged him. Tyler would have been proud to be your son-in-law. I would have been proud to have him, Wesley said, and meant it. That night, Wesley sat in his workshop, cleaning his weapons one last time before storing them away. The war was over. The Reapers were destroyed. Tyler's killers would spend decades in prison. But the victory fell hollow. Tyler was still gone. Diane was still grieving. The world was still a place where kids got killed over scratch paint. All Wesley had done was make sure this particular group of monsters faced consequences. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. But it was something. Marta found him there, staring at the wall. "Come to bed," she said softly. In a minute, she sat beside him. "You did what you had to do." "Did I? Or did I just give in to my worst impulses?" "You saved lives, Wesley. Those girls Sarah mentioned, the businesses they were extorting, the people they would have hurt next. You saved them all. By becoming what I hate." "No." She took his hand. "You became what was necessary. There's a difference." Wesley wasn't sure he believed that, but he wanted to. He locked up the workshop and went inside with his wife. Tomorrow he'd return to his normal life, making furniture and trying to forget he'd once been a weapon. But tonight he allowed himself to feel what he'd been suppressing for weeks. Grief for Tyler, relief that it was over, and guilt for the men he'd hurt. Even monsters, it turned out, haunted you. Chapter 6, Aftermath. 3 months later, the trials began. The prosecution had an embarrassment of riches. Confessions from Vincent and Kirk, forensic evidence, surveillance footage, financial records, testimony from victims, and witnesses who were no longer afraid to speak. The defense attorneys fought hard, but they were swimming against a tide of evidence. Vincent Rasmussen was tried first. The charges included second-degree murder, drug trafficking, racketeering, assault, extortion, and a dozen other counts. His attorney tried arguing that Vincent's confession had been coerced. After all, he'd been shot and threatened by a masked vigilante. The judge wasn't sympathetic. Your client's injuries occurred during the commission of crimes. His confession was given voluntarily to law enforcement after receiving proper medical treatment. Motion denied. Diane attended every day of the trial. Wesley went with her, sitting in the gallery, watching Vincent squirm on the stand. The gang leader tried to maintain his tough guy image, but the evidence was crushing. The prosecution played the audio Wesley had recorded, Vincent laughing about Tyler's death. They showed the social media posts. They brought in Tyler's autopsy photos, forcing the jury to see what the Reapers had done. Tyler's parents gave victim impact statements. So did Diane. "Tyler was the kindest person I've ever known," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "He saw the best in everyone. He believed people could change, could be better. And they killed him for accidentally scratching a piece of metal. They killed my future, my happiness, my chance at the life we'd planned. And they laughed about it." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous on all counts. Guilty. Vincent's sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge was a stern woman named Patricia Kemp, who'd been presiding over criminal cases for 20 years. She'd seen plenty of hardened criminals, but something about this case had gotten to her. "Mr. Rasmussen," she began, "I've reviewed your record extensively. Your history of violence, your complete lack of remorse, your attempts to intimidate witnesses and corrupt the judicial process. You're a cancer on this community." Vincent sneered. "I ain't scared of prison. I'll be out in 10 years, and then—" "You'll be out in never," Judge Kemp interrupted. "I'm sentencing you to life without possibility of parole for the murder of Tyler Bradford. Additionally, you'll serve consecutive sentences for each of your other convictions. 25 years for drug trafficking, 20 years for racketeering, 15 years for witness intimidation. In total, you're looking at life plus 60 years. Vincent's face went white. "You can't." "I can and I have." "Bailiff, remove the defendant." As Vincent was led away, he looked directly at Wesley. For a moment, something passed between them. Mutual recognition of what had really happened. Then Vincent was gone. Kurt Doherty's trial was next. He'd cooperated, but his own crimes were severe enough that the DA pushed for maximum sentences. Kirk received 40 years without parole. One by one, the Reapers fell. Brandon Snow, 30 years. Oscar Lee, 25 years. The men who'd actually beaten Tyler, Leroy Doty, Stephen Molina, and 3 others, all received murder convictions with sentences ranging from 30 years to life. By summer, 21 Reapers were in prison. Two had fled and were wanted fugitives. The Reapers Motorcycle Club was officially disbanded, their assets seized, their clubhouse sold at auction. The money from the sale went to a victims' compensation fund. Tyler's parents received a settlement. So did Sarah Nelson and the other girls the Reapers had assaulted. Wesley watched it all with grim satisfaction. Justice had been served. Not perfectly. Tyler was still dead, and no amount of prison sentences would change that. But the men responsible were paying for their crimes. Life slowly returned to normal. Wesley went back to full-time woodworking. Marta returned to teaching law. Diane transferred to a university in another city, needing distance from the memories. But trauma didn't disappear just because justice was served. Diane struggled with PTSD, nightmares of that night at the gas station. She started therapy, joined a support group for people who'd lost loved ones to violence. Slowly, painfully, she began to heal. Wesley had his own demons. He'd killed men in Afghanistan and lived with that. But what he'd done to the Reapers was different. Premeditated, calculated, personal. Some nights, he woke up seeing Vincent's face, hearing Pete Pham's screams. Marta noticed. You need to talk to someone. I'm fine. You're not. I know the signs, Wesley. You're carrying this alone, and it's eating you up. He finally agreed to see a therapist, a former military psychologist named Dr. Grace Thornton, who specialized in combat veterans. She was the only person besides Marta who knew the full truth of what Wesley had done. Do you regret it? Dr. Thornton asked during their third session. Wesley thought carefully. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that Tyler died. I regret that the system failed so badly that a vigilante seemed like the only option. But do I regret taking down the Reapers? No, even though you violated your own moral code. Maybe my moral code needed violating. Maybe there are times when following the rules just enables evil to continue. That's a dangerous philosophy. I know. That's why I'm here. They talked about the line between justice and revenge, about living with necessary violence, about finding peace after war. The sessions helped, but Wesley knew he'd never be the same man he was before Tyler's death. None of them would. 6 months after the trials, Detective Holman stopped by Wesley's workshop. Thought you want to know? We got the last 2 Reapers. They were hiding out in Arizona. Extradition's already in progress. That's good news. Holman nodded. I've been meaning to ask. All those anonymous tips we got, the surveillance photos, the evidence packages. That was professional-level intelligence work. I heard it might have been a private investigator. Someone hired by Tyler's family, maybe. That's the official theory. Holman smiled slightly. Funny thing, though, Tyler's family was broke. They couldn't have afforded that level of investigation. Maybe someone did it pro bono. Some people take cases for the right reasons, not the money. Maybe. Holman extended his hand. Well, whoever it was, they did this community a service. The Reapers destroyed a lot of lives. Now, those victims can have some closure. Wesley shook his hand. Closure is good. After Holman left, Wesley returned to the chair he was building. A rocking chair. Tyler had commissioned one for his grandmother before he died. Wesley had decided to finish it and give it to Tyler's parents. A small gesture, but meaningful. As he worked, sanding the smooth curves of the armrest, Wesley thought about the cost of justice. Tyler was still gone. 21 men were in prison, their families suffering. Wesley had blood on his hands that would never wash clean. But the Reapers would never hurt anyone again. That had to count for something. Late that night, Wesley sat in his workshop staring at Tyler's photo on the wall. The young man with the easy smile, holding up a wrench, standing beside Diane. Both of them happy and alive and full of hope. I got them, Wesley whispered to the photo. Every single one. They're paying for what they did to you. The photo didn't answer, of course. Tyler was gone, and no amount of revenge or justice would bring him back. But maybe, just maybe, he could rest easier knowing his killers would never see freedom again. Wesley turned off the lights and locked the workshop. Tomorrow he'd visit Diane at college, see how she was doing. Next week, Marta's birthday. Life continued, even after tragedy. The Reapers were finished. Wesley had won. But in the quiet moments, when he was alone with his thoughts, he wondered if anyone really won in situations like this, or if they all just lost different amounts. Chapter 7. the final piece. 8 months after the trials, Wesley received an unexpected visitor. Hugo Little, the Reaper accountant who'd received immunity in exchange for testimony, appeared at Wesley's workshop on a Thursday afternoon. He looked nervous, glancing around like he expected an ambush. "Mr. Dodson? I'm not sure if you remember me." "I remember." Wesley set down his tools. "You helped put away the men who killed Tyler." "I'm grateful for that." Hugo shifted uncomfortably. "That's not entirely why I testified. You and I both know what really happened in that parking lot." Wesley's expression didn't change. "I don't know what you're talking about. You put a gun in my face and threatened to kill me. You made me talk. That sounds like something you should report to the police." "I did. They weren't interested." Hugo pulled out a cigarette but didn't light it, just held it. Said they couldn't prosecute based on the testimony of a criminal making accusations against a decorated veteran with no evidence. Holman practically laughed me out of the station. "Then why are you here?" "Because I wanted to thank you." That caught Wesley off guard. "What?" Hugo finally lit his cigarette. "I was in deep with the Reapers. Too deep to get out. They owned me, had dirt on me, threatened my family if I tried to leave. I was trapped in a life I hated, doing things that made me sick. And then you came along and blew it all up. I didn't do it for you. I know. You did it for Tyler. But free me anyway." Hugo exhaled smoke. "I've got a straight job now. Accounting for a construction company. My wife doesn't wake up screaming from nightmares anymore. My kids don't have to pretend they don't know what their dad really did for a living. You gave me a second chance I didn't deserve." Wesley studied him. "You helped them hurt people." "I did. And I'll have to live with that. But at least now I'm not helping them anymore. At least now I can look my kids in the eye." Hugo turned to leave, then paused. Vincent's still trying to run things from prison, by the way. Sending messages out through his lawyer, trying to rebuild the club. "Thought you should know." After Hugo left, Wesley sat thinking. The Reapers in prison, their club destroyed, justice served. He'd thought it was over. But criminal organizations were like weeds. Cut them down, and they grew back. Unless you burn the roots. Wesley made a phone call to Bruce Hinton. "I need one more favor." "Wesley, I thought you were done with all this." "Almost. But there's one loose end." 2 weeks later, the FBI raided Vincent's prison. They found contraband cell phones, evidence of continued criminal enterprise, and plans to rebuild the Reapers using outside contacts. Vincent was transferred to a Supermax facility in Colorado, where he'd spend the rest of his life in 23-hour lockdown with no contact with the outside world. The remaining Reapers scattered or went straight. Without Vincent's leadership and resources, the club simply dissolved. The few who tried to keep it going were quickly arrested or driven out by other gangs moving into the power vacuum. The Reapers were truly finished. A year after Tyler's death, Diane came home for the anniversary. They held a small memorial service at Tyler's grave. Just family and close friends. Diane had a new boyfriend, a fellow student named Michael who was studying to be a teacher. Wesley approved. He was nothing like Tyler, but he was kind, genuine, and he made Diane smile again. "I'm never going to completely get over losing Tyler," Diane told Wesley as they stood by the grave. "He'll always be part of my story, but I'm learning to live with it, to move forward." "He'd want that," Wesley said. "I know. She placed flowers on the headstone. Did I ever tell you that Tyler talked about you all the time? He admired you. Said you were the kind of man he wanted to be, strong, principled, someone who protected the people he loved." Wesley felt emotion catch in his throat. He was already that kind of man. "Yeah, he was." Diane wiped her eyes. "I'm glad his killers are in prison. I'm glad they can't hurt anyone else. However that happened." She gave him a look that said she understood more than she'd ever admitted. Wesley nodded slightly. They'd never discuss it directly, but she knew. And she was okay with it. Because sometimes justice required getting her hands dirty. That evening, the family gathered at Wesley and Marta's house. Diane and Michael, Tyler's parents Luke and Jacqueline, and a few close friends. They shared stories about Tyler, laughed at his jokes, remembered the good times. It was healing in a way that vengeance never could be. Because revenge only took away the bad. It didn't give back what was lost. But memory, community, love, those filled the hole just a little bit. As the evening wound down and guests departed, Wesley found himself alone on the back porch with Marta. "You did it," she said softly. "You got justice for Tyler. We all did. The police, the prosecutors, the witnesses who came forward. But you started it. You made it possible." Marta took his hand. "I was terrified the whole time. Terrified you'd be killed or arrested or worse. But you pulled it off. I'm not proud of everything I did. I know. But you're alive, you're free, and the men who killed Tyler are in prison for life. That's more than most families get." She was right. In a justice system that often failed victims, Tyler's family had gotten closure. Not perfect, not complete, but real. "What now?" Marta asked. "Now that it's over, what do you do?" Wesley thought about that. For a year, vengeance had driven him, waking up each day with a purpose, a mission. Now that purpose was gone, replaced by ordinary life, making furniture, paying bills, growing old. It should have felt empty. Instead, it felt like relief. "Now I live," Wesley said. "I watch Diane graduate, hopefully walk her down the aisle someday. I make beautiful things with my hands. I love you. Cherish every ordinary moment. Because Tyler doesn't get those moments anymore. The least I can do is appreciate them." Marta kissed him. "I love you, even when you scare me. I love you too." They sat together in comfortable silence as the sun set. Two people who'd weathered a storm and somehow stayed standing. Inside, Diane and Michael were laughing at something on Michael's phone. Young love, hope for the future, life continuing despite tragedy. Tyler was gone, but his memory lived on. In the lives he'd touched, the people who loved him, the justice that had been served in his name. Wesley closed his eyes and felt something he hadn't felt in a year. Peace. Not complete, not perfect, but real. And for now, that was enough. Chapter 8. Echoes. 2 years after Tyler's death, Wesley received a letter. The return address was Colorado Supermax Prison. He almost threw it away. Then curiosity got the better of him. He opened it in his workshop, away from Marta's eyes. The handwriting was cramped and angry. "You think you won. You think destroying my life, my club, my freedom makes you a hero. You're just a murderer who got lucky. I know it was you. No proof, but I know. One day I'll get out. Maybe not for decades, but I'll get out. And when I do, I'm coming for your family, your daughter, your wife, everyone you love. You took everything from me. I'll return the favor. Vincent." Wesley read it twice, then burned it in his workshop forge. The ashes floated up, disappearing into nothing. He could report the letter as a threat, but what was the point? Vincent was locked in a box for the rest of his life. The threat was empty, desperate, the ranting of a broken man trying to feel powerful. Still, Wesley took precautions. He taught Diane advanced self-defense, made sure she had pepper spray, knew how to recognize tales, understood situational awareness. He did the same with Marta. "Is there something you're not telling me?" Marta asked after the third defensive driving lesson. "Just being careful. The world's dangerous." She didn't push, but she knew. She always knew. Months passed, then a year. The threat never materialized because it couldn't. Vincent was sealed away, his power gone, his empire dust. But Wesley remained vigilant, because he'd learned in the Marines that you never truly left the battlefield. It followed you home, into your dreams, into your quiet moments. He still woke, sometimes at 2:47 a.m., the exact time Diane had called about Tyler. Still saw Pete Pham's face, Vincent's shock, the blood and chaos of that week. Dr. Thornton said it was normal. You went to war, Wesley, not in a foreign country this time, but war nonetheless. Those scars don't just disappear. How do I live with them? By accepting what you did was necessary. By understanding that you saved lives, even if you had to take hard actions to do it. By forgiving yourself. The last part was hardest, because Wesley knew he'd crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed. He'd become judge, jury, and executioner. He'd terrorized criminals, shot them, broken them. Even if they deserved it, even if he'd do it again, it still weighed on him. But gradually, slowly, the weight lessened. The nightmares came less frequently. The 2:47 a.m. wake-ups stopped being every night and became every week, then every month. Life moved on. Diane graduated with honors. She got a job as a structural engineer, designing bridges. Something permanent, she explained to Wesley. Something that'll last long after I'm gone. Tyler wanted to build things too. This is my way of honoring that. She and Michael got engaged. The wedding was planned for the following spring. Tyler's parents, Luke and Jacqueline, had moved to Arizona to be near Jacqueline's sister. They stayed in touch, sending Christmas cards, occasional calls. They'd never fully recovered from losing their only child, but they'd found a way to keep living. The community had healed too. The businesses the Reapers had extorted were thriving. The drug trade they controlled had been disrupted enough that crime rates dropped. Young people felt safer walking at night. Detective Holman retired and started a consulting business helping other departments deal with organized crime. He and Wesley had coffee occasionally, never discussing what had really happened, both understanding the unspoken truth. "You ever regret becoming a cop?" Wesley asked during one of these meetings. "Every day," Holman admitted. "But then I remember the people we help, the bad guys we stop, the justice we deliver. It's not perfect. The system's broken in a lot of ways. But it's better than nothing. And when the system fails?" Holman met his eyes. Sometimes good people have to step outside it. Not often, and not without consequences. But sometimes, they clinked coffee cups. Two men who'd seen the darkness and fought it in their own ways. One afternoon, Sarah Nelson, the girl Wesley had helped after the Reapers assaulted her, appeared at his workshop. She was older now, more confident, studying criminal justice in college. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for that night, for helping me when you didn't have to. You thanked me already. Several times. I know, but I wanted you to know I'm going to be a prosecutor. I'm going to put away men like the Reapers. Because of you, I'm alive to do that. Because you got them off the streets, my little brother is safe. That means everything." Wesley felt a lump in his throat. This was what it had all been for. Not revenge, not violence, but protecting the innocent, stopping the cycle of victimization. "Tyler would be proud," Sarah said. "I didn't know him well, but I heard he was a good person. This is his legacy. All the people who are safe now, because someone stood up to the monsters." After she left, Wesley stood in his workshop, surrounded by the furniture he'd built, the life he'd made. He thought about Tyler, about the kid who'd asked permission to date Diane, who'd rescued a kitten, who dreamed of teaching mechanics to underprivileged kids. Tyler's death had been senseless, cruel, wrong. But what came after, the justice, the accountability, the lives saved, that meant something. It didn't balance the scales. Nothing could, but it mattered. That evening, Wesley joined Marta and Diane for dinner. They talked about the wedding plans, about Diane's new project at work, about ordinary family things. At one point, Diane raised her glass. A toast to Tyler, to the life he should have had, and to making sure his death meant something. They drank together, three people bound by love and loss and survival. After dinner, Wesley returned to his workshop. He had a project to finish, a hope chest he was building for Diane's wedding. Hand-carved oak, intricate designs built to last generations. As he worked, Wesley thought about the future. Grandchildren someday, bouncing on his knee, growing old with Marta, watching Diane build the life Tyler had wanted to share with her. The Reapers were gone. The monsters were caged. Justice had been served. And Wesley Dodson, former Marine, furniture maker, father, and for one violent week a vigilante warrior, had finally found peace. Not by forgetting what he'd done, not by pretending it hadn't been necessary, but by accepting that sometimes good men had to do terrible things to stop evil. And then they had to learn to live with themselves afterward. The wood grain under his hands was smooth, honest, real. He sanded it carefully, lovingly, pouring all his hope for Diane's future into every stroke. Tomorrow he'd wake up, have coffee with Marta, work on client projects, live an ordinary life. But tonight, in the quiet of his workshop, Wesley allowed himself to remember, to honor the memory of Tyler Bradford, the kid who should have become his son-in-law, and to acknowledge that while vengeance was empty, justice, real, hard-won, imperfect justice could heal. Chapter 9, Legacy. 5 years after Tyler's death, Diane stood at the altar with a different man. Michael was good to her, patient with her grief, understanding about her past. Wesley walked her down the aisle with pride and sorrow mixed together. In the front row, An empty chair sat with Tyler's photo and a single white rose. Diane had insisted on it. "He should be here," she'd said simply. The ceremony was beautiful. Diane's vows mentioned Tyler, honoring his memory while embracing her future. There wasn't a dry eye in the church. At the reception, Wesley gave a toast. "My daughter has been through hell and came out stronger. She loved deeply, lost terribly, and found the courage to love again. That's not moving on. That's honoring what came before by refusing to let tragedy define her." Tyler would be proud. I know I am. Luke and Jacqueline Bradford attended, older now, but smiling. They'd made peace with Tyler's death the way anyone could, by accepting it was real and finding ways to celebrate his life rather than just mourning his death. After the wedding, as Wesley and Marta drove home, she said, "You've been quiet, just thinking about how different things could have been. If Tyler hadn't been at that gas station, if the Reapers hadn't been there. One moment, one random chance, and everything changed. But it did change, and you made sure his death mattered. Did I, though? Or did I just satisfy my own need for vengeance?" Marta was quiet for a moment. "Why can't it be both? You're human, Wesley. You felt rage at what happened, and you acted on it. But you also accomplished something real. The Reapers are gone. Their victims got justice. That has value beyond your personal feelings." She was right, but Wesley still struggled with it. He'd crossed lines, hurt people, operated outside the law. The fact that it had worked out didn't erase the moral complexity. But maybe that was okay. Maybe moral complexity was part of being human. A year after Diane's wedding, Wesley became a grandfather. A baby girl named Lauren Grace, with her mother's determination and her grandfather's stubborn streak. Holding her for the first time, Wesley thought about Tyler, about the grandchildren they'd been robbed of, about the life that should have been. But he also thought about the life that was. Diane happy with Michael, a granddaughter who'd grow up in a world slightly safer because the Reapers were gone. A family that had survived tragedy and remained intact. "You would have been a great father," Wesley whispered to Tyler's memory. "I hope wherever you are, you know we didn't forget you. We never will." When Lauren was 3, Diane started a foundation in Tyler's name. The Tyler Bradford Memorial Foundation provided scholarships for students studying mechanical engineering and automotive technology. It also funded programs teaching trade skills to at-risk youth. Exactly what Tyler had wanted to do. "This is his legacy," Diane told Wesley at the foundation's first fundraiser. "Not his death, but his dreams. We're making them real for other kids." The foundation thrived. Over the years, it helped hundreds of students, many from rough backgrounds, learn skills that changed their lives. Former gang members became mechanics. Troubled kids found purpose in building and fixing things. It was healing in a way vengeance never could be, because it created something positive from tragedy, something that grew and multiplied. Wesley volunteered with the foundation, teaching woodworking classes. He found joy in passing on his skills, in seeing young people discover the satisfaction of creating with their hands. One student, an 18-year-old named Marcus who'd been in and out of juvenile detention, approached Wesley after class. "My uncle was in the Reapers," Marcus said quietly. "He's in prison now for what happened to Tyler Bradford." Wesley tensed. "I see. I just wanted to say, I'm glad they got caught. My uncle was a bad dude. He hurt a lot of people, and I was heading down the same path until I found this program." Marcus gestured at the woodworking shop. "This place, learning this stuff, it saved me. So thank you for everything." Wesley shook his hand. Tyler believed everyone deserved a second chance. He'd want you to succeed. I won't let him down. Or you. Watching Marcus leave, Wesley felt something shift. This was why it had all mattered. Not the violence, not the revenge, but what came after. The healing, the growth, the prevention of future tragedies. Detective Holman had retired fully now, but they still had lunch quarterly. At one such lunch, Holman revealed something Wesley hadn't known. "The FBI investigated you, you know, after the Reapers went down. They suspected civilian involvement in the vigilante attacks." Wesley's heart skipped. And I may have accidentally lost some evidence. Files got misfiled. Security footage mysteriously corrupted. Funny how that happens. Holman smiled. They closed the investigation for lack of evidence. You didn't have to do that. Sure I did. You think I don't understand the difference between legal and right? I spent 30 years watching scumbags walk free because of technicalities. So when a good man stepped up to stop a real evil, I wasn't about to sabotage that. I still broke the law. So did I, covering for you. Guess we're both criminals now. Holman raised his coffee cup. To necessary crimes. They drank to that. Two old men who'd seen too much but still believed in justice. Even the imperfect kind. Wesley kept working, kept building, kept living. The nightmares faded to rare occurrences. The guilt became manageable. He learned to compartmentalize what he'd done, accepting it without letting it consume him. Dr. Thornton told him that was healthy. You integrated the experience into your life story without letting it define you. That's maturity. It feels like letting myself off the hook. You'll never let yourself completely off the hook, and that's probably good. A little guilt keeps us human, but drowning in it helps no one. On the 10th anniversary of Tyler's death, the family gathered at his grave. Diane brought her children, Lauren, now 9, and her younger brother Jack, age 6. Michael stood supportive beside her. Tyler's parents were there too, frilier now, but still standing. They'd created their own memorial to Tyler in Arizona, a community garden where kids could learn about nature and responsibility. He's still changing lives, Jacqueline said, looking at the foundation's annual report. Hundreds of students helped. Thousands of lives touched. That's our boy's real legacy. Wesley read a poem Diane had written, talking about love and loss and memory. Lauren placed flowers on the grave, asking questions about the uncle she'd never meet but heard about constantly. Was Uncle Tyler nice? She asked. The nicest, Diane said. He would have loved you so much. I wish I could have met him. You can still honor him. By being kind, like he was. By helping people. By making the world a little better. It was a lesson Wesley hoped she'd carry with her. That tragedy didn't have to break you. That loss could inspire growth. That the best revenge against evil was building something good. Later, standing alone at the grave as others returned to their cars, Wesley spoke quietly. I got them all, Tyler. Every single one. They'll never hurt anyone again. And your foundation is thriving, helping kids just like you wanted to. Diane's happy. She's got a good life, good kids. She's okay. The wind rustled through the trees, and Wesley chose to believe it was Tyler's way of saying thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, but I made damn sure your death mattered. I hope that counts for something. He placed his hand on the headstone, felt the cold granite, and said goodbye one more time. Then he turned and walked toward his family. Marta waiting by the car, Diane holding her children's hands, Michael with his arm around her shoulders. His family, intact and healing. The reapers were dust. Tyler was at rest. Justice had been served. And Wesley Dodson, a father who'd gone to war for his daughter, had finally found the peace he'd been seeking. Not perfect peace, not the peace of forgetting, but the peace of knowing he'd done what needed doing, protected those who needed protecting, and ensured that one kid's senseless death had led to something meaningful. In the car, Lauren climbed into Wesley's lap. Grandpa, why are you crying? Just remembering someone I miss, sweetheart. It's okay to miss people, she said with 9-year-old wisdom. Mommy says missing them means we love them. Wesley hugged her close. Your mommy's very smart. As they drove home through familiar streets, Wesley thought about the man he'd been 5 years ago, consumed by rage and grief. That man had done terrible things for what he believed were right reasons. Had he been right? History would judge. The law certainly wouldn't approve. But looking at his family, Diane laughing with Michael, Marta holding Jack, Lauren humming a song, Wesley couldn't bring himself to regret it. The reapers had taken Tyler from them, but they hadn't broken them. And in the end, that was the truest victory of all. Not the violence, not the vengeance, but the survival, the love that endured past tragedy, the family that refused to be destroyed. That was Tyler's real legacy. Not the way he died, but the way they honored his life by continuing to live theirs. And Wesley, battle-scarred but still standing, made peace with the man he'd become. A protector, a father, a grandfather, and for one necessary week, when the law had failed and evil had won, something more, something darker, something the world needed, even if it couldn't admit it. A warrior who'd gone to war for love and justice, and won. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.